Yo, what's going on everybody? TJ here, and for today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to set up a full skateboard brand new from scratch. So in this video we're going to go over all of the different parts and components of the skateboard. I'm going to give you guys a couple tips on the different sizing, so if you haven't gotten your own board yet already, you have some information to help you decide what would be best for you. And then of course we are going to assemble it. And I'm also going to tell you which tools you need to do that. So we're going to start off with the skateboard deck. To do the deck, you are going to need a board, and you're going to need grip tape, and you're going to need a razor blade. And real quick before we get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Ocean City Skate Camp. I'm coaching the skate camp. We are here at Ocean City Skate Park right now. I'm going to be doing week 2 right after this video. So I promise I give you guys a shout out. Here you are. You guys are killing it. Keep on going, and let's get back to the video. So you want to make sure that your razor blade is very sharp. You want to have a brand new razor if possible, because the grip tape is pretty thick. So you want something sharp so you can cut through it very cleanly. So if you haven't already, cut the plastic off of your board. And as far as boards go, the typical sizing for a board, this one is a 8.75, an 8.75, which is pretty big of a board. If you are a child, or if you're building a skateboard for a child, or if you like to do a lot of flip tricks, then I would recommend you get a board that is a lot more skinnier. 7.5 is a really good, really small board. That would be great for flip tricks as well as the younger crowd. This is 8.75. This is good for transition skating, bowls, vert, things like that. You can still do flip tricks on this size board. It really comes down to a personal preference, so I'd recommend figure out what kind of size you think you'd like. Smaller if you like flip tricks, bigger if you like transition, quarter pipes, mini ramp, bowl skating, and work it from there. Test it out, and you can always go up in size or go down on a later board. So to put on the grip tape, first you want to make sure that you have a piece of grip tape that is as long as the board. You want to make sure that it is going to fully cover it. I'm using Jessup grip tape. This is my favorite grip tape. All grip tapes are pretty good. Some are a little bit more gritty. I know Mob is a little bit more gritty. Black Magic's a little more gritty. This is like a medium grit, and this works best for me, so I like to use Jessup. So to put the grip tape on, if you're going to be doing a full sheet, which we are in this video, we're just going to be doing one full sheet. Sometimes people will rip it, put them in different spots of the board, make some art out of it. That's cool too. You can absolutely do that. But for this video, we're just going to be putting one sheet across the entire board. So you want to take the back paper off of the grip. Be very careful because this is very sticky. Make sure that you don't have any dust or dirt on the board. You know, this is like putting a screen protector on your phone. You want to make sure there's no dust and no dirt on the board if possible. And the way that I like to do it is first eye it out, make sure that it's going to fit the board, and start at one side first. Okay, so you want to put the grip tape right at the edge, maybe a quarter of an inch over it. You want to make sure that it's going to fit over the entire board. Eye it out and push just the very edge of the board down. Now to put the rest of the grip down, we're going to start from this side and go all the way to the other side of the board, the tail to the nose or the nose to the tail, doesn't really matter. And we're going to start from the middle of the board and push outward as well. This is so we can avoid as many bubbles as possible. You do not want bubbles in your grip tape because it's going to annoy you and it's not going to look right. But there is also a fix if you do have a bubble, which I will show you after we get this on. So I like to just make my way. All right, and I can already see that I'm not going to make the actual full length of the board, so we're gonna start over, which is totally fine. This is by far the hardest part of putting a board together. If this is your first time gripping a board, be patient with yourself because it is absolutely a process here. So what we want to do is push down in the center to avoid any bubbles, and then move our way outward to try and smooth it all out with no bubbles. And you can also use the paper from the grip if you don't want to scrape your hand up on the grip. It doesn't really matter to me, and I feel like I can judge the board a little bit better if I use my actual hand. If you feel any bubbles, just try and push them out like we are doing right over here. Okay, and now that we have our grip tape on the actual board, let's check to see if we have any bubbles, which I do have one bubble right here. That's okay. The way to get rid of a bubble is to take your razor and poke a little hole right through the bubble and push the air out through that hole. Okay, that is absolutely going to be the hardest part of this entire process. Now this is going to be the most fun part of the entire process. So the tools that you're going to need is a screwdriver and 2 nut drivers or a socket wrench, a 1/2 inch and 3/8 of an inch. The 1/2 inch is going to be for when we put our wheels on. The 3/8 of an inch is going to be for when we put our hardware on. Okay? So you could take any one of these sides, or you could even use one of your trucks, or you could even use, this is a little bit dangerous, but you could use the edge of the razor, or you could even use a rock. But what we're going to do is we're going to mark the edge of the board. And this is going to do 2 things. One is going to show us where we're going to cut the grip tape, and 2, it's going to help push the edge of the grip down onto the board. All right, now you can see the marking around where the board is. That's where we're going to be cutting the grip. Look at how close it was for me to put this grip on this board because it's so wide. It was pretty much the entire sheet. I had no room for error on that one. Now to cut the grip tape, you're going to take a razor. I like to just use a single straight blade razor. We're going to cut a little slit over here at the nose or the tail. And what you want to do is, I like to hold it like this. My middle finger, my thumb holds it, and my pointer finger guides the razor. And we're going to keep it at a slight angle as we go down the board. And you're just going to try to follow that line at the same angle the entire way down. Let's move some of the stuff out of the way so you guys can see a little bit better here. And like I said earlier, the sharper of a blade you have, the better this cut is going to be. Be very careful going through the nose and the tail. This is definitely the hardest part. This takes a lot of practice to get it down nice and evenly. I've done a lot of different boards to get this motion down. Once again, be patient with yourself if this is your first time. It is definitely a little bit tricky at first. And again, on the nose or the tail, whichever is your last side, just be very, very careful to try and get the most even cut you can. And voila, we have gripped the board. So now you want to make sure you keep all your trash together. We're going to make sure that this all ends up in the trash can. And now we are going to start on the next section, which is putting on the trucks. Now you're going to need a pair of trucks, 1 and 2, and you're going to need hardware to attach the trucks to the board. Hardware being a bolt and a nut. Skate shops will have hardware available for you to purchase. I don't have a recommended brand. Whatever your skate shop gives you will probably be sufficient enough. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to mark the board so you can actually see where to put the bolts through the grip tape. This is why we wanted to do the grip tape first, because we want the bolts to be on top. That way we can easily take them off in the future when we're ready to replace our board. So to judge where to put the bolts, you want to come to the bottom of the board where you have 4 holes on each side. You're going to take one of your bolts and you're going to push it into the hole just enough so you can see a little bump pop up on the other side. You don't want to push too hard, okay? Just enough so you can see where the holes are supposed to be. Once you do that, turn it back over to the top of the board, line up your bolt, get it started on the hole, and push it right through. And we're going to do that with all 4. That's 2. That's 3. And that's 4. Take off any grip tape that you push through. Keep it all together with your trash. Now we are going to put this first truck on. When you are picking out a pair of trucks, you want to make sure that you're getting trucks that are the same size as the width of your board. So these are the Ace hollows. Some are solid and some are hollow. The hollow ones are a little bit lighter. And then there's also titanium ones, which are very light. They're all at different price points. You decide what is going to be best for you. I'm going with the hollows for this setup, but I've used solids in the past. Now you want to make sure, once again, that the axle of the truck is the same exact length as the width of your board. So I have an 8.75, so I have the Ace 60s, which is the exact size is 8.75. Make sure that you have your board be exactly the same size as your trucks. When you want to put your trucks on, right here is your kingpin and your bushings, right? Your bushings, these are just the standard bushings. You could get harder ones, you could get softer ones that'll give you more play, more wiggle, easier to turn or harder to turn, depending what you want. Harder to turn would make the board more stable, which could be good for flip tricks and flat ground. Easier to turn is good for transition and bowl skating and turning and cruising. So you want to make sure that your bushings and your kingpin are on the inside of the board. And we're going to line up the bolts, push through the holes on the truck. and we're going to get the nut started on the hardware. Now, another thing to keep in mind for your hardware is the length that you get. Most hardware is going to be either, I believe, 7/8 of an inch, 1 inch, or 1 1/4 inch. If you have risers, you want to make sure that you get probably at least 1 inch, maybe even the 1 1/4 inch. You want to make sure that it's long enough that it goes through the lock on the nut, right? These are the lock nuts, so they don't fall off. If you have risers, risers go under the truck. I'm not putting any risers on this board, but if you do have risers, they go under the truck and they stop you from getting wheel bite. And apparently they also can help with your pop, but that's something that you'd have to test for yourself, because I personally don't feel a difference with the riser. Okay, now that we have all of our hardware started, you're going to need a nut driver that's 3/8 or a socket wrench or anything like that. That's 3/8 of an inch for this nut, and a Phillips head screwdriver. Occasionally hardware will be hex key or Allen key, so if you have that, then make sure you have the proper Allen key size. So all you want to do is put your nut driver over the nut and your screwdriver on the back of the bolt and tighten it up. Now, when you're first putting these on, you don't want to tighten them all the way at first. You want to give them a little bit of give, that way you're able to fully line it up and then lock it in all together nice and evenly. That'll also avoid pressure on one side compared to a different side. As you can see, like, there's a little bit of lift over here because I haven't tightened it yet, but we're leaving a little bit of give over here, and we're going to retighten that at the end once we have them all set and exactly where we want them to be. So you always want to put them on diagonally, right? So we already did this side, now we're going to do this side. Just tighten it up. And alternatively, if you have it available, you can use a power tool, a power drill, to tighten it up much quicker. Okay, now we're going to do diagonals again. Not tightening it all the way just yet. Okay, so now that we have all of our bolts on, you can see that there's still a little bit of lift here because I left that little bit of extra room. So as we tighten these fully, we want to tighten them enough that the top of the bolt lays exactly flat and exactly level with your grip tape. And I'm doing it by hand because I can be a little bit more precise that way. But it is pretty tough, so the power tool might be your best option. You also could use a skate tool, which I'll show on screen right now, that has all of the correct sizes for the entire board setup. Okay, now I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side with the bushings going towards the center, just like this, and then we'll come back to move on to the wheels. All right, now that we have the trucks on the board, it is time for us to set up the wheels. So before we do anything with the wheels on the board, we have to actually put the bearings in the wheels first. Now, something about wheels, they come in different sizes and they come in different hardnesses. I'm not gonna go too deep into the harnesses in this video. That's gonna be for a future video, so subscribe if you wanna see that. But what I do want you guys to know is they do have different sizes. These ones are 58 millimeter, which is gonna be good for transition, bowl skating, vert skating. These are bigger, these are on the bigger side. So typically wheels will be on average, there's not to say that there's not smaller or bigger than this, but 52 millimeters on a small side, 60 millimeters on the big side. They definitely can get smaller and they definitely can get bigger. The 52 millimeters, those are going to be good for street skating, for flip tricks. They're smaller, they're lighter, they're closer to the ground, easier to pop, easier to spin around. These ones are 58 millimeters. These ones are bigger. They're good for locking in on the ramps. And they're also bigger, so you'll get more speed with the bigger sizes as well. With the smaller ones, you'll go a little bit slower. So before we put these onto the board, we have to put the bearings inside of the wheels. So let's take our razor, open up this pack. Now, as far as bearings goes, they're typically done on the ABEC scale. A higher ABEC number is supposed to be more speed, right? The higher the number, the more fast that they'll be. These ones are actually not ABEC rated. These are the high-end version of bearings. These are the ceramics by Bone Swiss, right? Made in Switzerland. I would say that on your low end, reds are a phenomenal bearing choice. For your mid-tier, I would recommend Bronson Raws. And for your high end, I would hopefully recommend the Bone Swiss ceramics. This is gonna be my first time trying these ones. So I will be making a review video to let you know how I feel about these really, really expensive bearings. Now, when you get bearings, you're going to get a pack of 8 of them. And these ones specifically have bearing spacers. Most bearings do not come with spacers. I'm going to be teaching you how to put them on with spacers and how to put them on without spacers. So first things first, your bearings are going to have 2 sides, right? This is the back and this is the side with the shield, right? You want to have the shield on the outside unless you have shieldless bearings. And by the way, that's not to say the bearings that I recommended are the only good bearings. There's plenty of other bearings that are good, but those are the ones that I found to be best out of the ones that I've tried personally. So you want to make sure that the shields are going to be on the outside of the wheel. And to put them in, you can either use a bearing press, which nobody has except for skate shops, or you could use a skate tool that has a bearing press, or you could do my way, which is take a nut off of your truck, put it into the truck, and push as hard as you can. And that is how you put a bearing in your wheel. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And typically, if you don't have bearing spacers, this is all you have to do. You just put them in on both sides. But if you do have the spacer, which I am going to do on this one, then you would put it right in the middle. And then you put the bearing on top. And then we'll push it down just like we did on the other side. Just like that. So make sure that it's all the way in on all sides with the shields facing outward. Now, this is your choice. Depending on the type of wheel you have, sometimes you'll have 2 different sides of the wheel, but most of the time it's going to look exactly identical on both sides. You could either have the graphic in or you can have the graphic out. That's a personal preference, unless you have a wheel that's designed to be a specific way. I'm gonna have the graphic out on this setup. Whoa, hold that for 1 second. I was just editing this video, realized that I missed a very important part of this process. There are actually washers that go on both sides of your wheels on your trucks. So I wanted to make sure that this was included in the video here. So So when you have a new pair of trucks, they're gonna come with these tiny little washers. And what these do is make sure that your bearings are not having direct contact with the back of your axle, as well as the nut that you put on the other side of your truck. So each side will have 2 washers. You wanna put one on the axle, then your wheel, then the other washer. All right, and let's get back to the main video. So once you have your wheel on the axle, you're gonna take the nut and get it started. And you're going to tighten it down, which I have to go get my skate tool to do. So I will be right back. Okay, so I am back with my skate tool and we are gonna be using the 9/16 side. Oh no, I'm sorry, we're going to be using the 1/2 inch side. The 9/16 side is going to be for the kingpin. The 1/2 inch side is going to be for the nut on the axle on your truck. So we're going to tighten this up. And if you have bearing spacers, this little thing in between your bearings, you can actually tighten all the way down and your wheel will still spin fine. However, if you do not have a bearing spacer and you tighten it all the way down, your wheel is not going to move. So to fix that, you just want to make sure it is the very slightest bit loose, okay? That way you could jiggle and hear the wheel move just a tiniest bit. Just like that. And that'll allow your wheel to spin if you don't have spacers in your bearings. We're gonna do the same thing for the other 3, and then we will have a full complete skateboard. All right, and once you have all 4 of your wheels on your board, you are ready to go. One extra tip for you guys is, depending on how you like to ride, this right here is your kingpin. You can use that 9/16 side like we talked about earlier to either loosen or tighten to allow yourself more wiggle room when turning. If you like very, very tight trucks, or if you're a new skater, you might want to tighten this up. Or if you like them to be nice and loose, you can just loosen it up here. You can also get different bushing types depending if you want them harder or softer as well. And then from there, open your packages to collect your stickers, throw out your trash, and you are ready to go. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more how-tos, reviews, skate park tours, and trick progression, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified on the next video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.